If you're supposed to be at the top of your game, why do you feel stuck and alone? Here's what I've learned in 28 years of leadership. We almost always talk about execution gaps. Why don't people just do what they're supposed to do? But here's the truth nobody wants to hear. It's almost never an execution problem. It's a communication problem. And specifically, it's a clarity problem. Today, I'm going to show you the one leadership tool that eliminates so many of those why the failure moments that exist in leadership. Why don't people just do what they're supposed to do? That's probably the number one complaint I've heard in 28 years across thousands of leaders. The challenge is that we think we have execution gaps, but what we actually have are communication failures. John Maxwell said that leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. But influence requires clarity. Ambiguity is the enemy of great results. It creates friction, it creates waste. And the stakes are even higher for solopreneurs and small teams. When you have a team of one, there's just nowhere to hide waste. Now, I'm not saying that this is something that can be overlooked in large organizations, but it's glaringly apparent in smaller organizations and in smaller teams. Again, the challenge we talk about is why don't people do their job? The real issue is, have we as leaders created clarity and built out a system of alignment? Here's what I want to cover today. I want to give you a rules of engagement framework that transforms ambiguity into clarity. And here's what you'll learn. You'll learn how to create your leadership decoder ring that you can give to your team, and it prevents the majority of leadership frustrations before they happen. This is the same framework I've used personally, and I've used it with almost all of my teams over the last 15 years. Let me start with a story about an Apple Watch that taught me everything about creating clarity and creating trust in a leadership team. So I'm a bit of a nerd, and when Apple came out with the Apple Watch about 10 years ago, I just had to have one. And it was the coolest thing, right? It would get text messages, it would get my calendar alerts, and I embraced it. I loved it. I loved that I could see what was going on at all times just by looking at my wrist. It felt like a Dick Tracy moment. What I didn't realize when I got my Apple Watch is that I was actually setting myself up for failure. Maybe even more importantly, I was setting myself up to be called out. Here's what happened. Now, in my leadership teams, I've always had one-on-one meetings, and those were monthly sessions, and they were the person who I was meeting with. It was their opportunity to use our relationship to help them be more impactful and effective in their role. Now, these meetings were 100% their time, their agenda. And, I had just gotten this new Apple Watch, and I didn't realize how disruptive the notifications were. And George Figueredo was our COO, and George and I were having our monthly one-to-one. And I didn't think anything of it. I just glanced at my watch and saw it was a text message, didn't think anything of it, respond later. Well, George stopped. He said, "Hey, Dusty, I hate to interrupt, but clearly right now, there are things more important than me going on in your world. I'd like to reschedule my one-on-one for a time that's more convenient for you to be fully present." Ouch. He called me out. This was a guy who worked for me, right? How could he do this? He did it because we had clearly established a rules of engagement. I had explicitly stated to him, I commit to being fully present in your time. I had given him explicit permission, not implied, but tacit permission to call me out. And that's exactly what he did. It was a safe place. It was expressly conveyed, and it was part of our operating norms. Now, we didn't get there just because we had some grand ideas. We were very intentional about creating a relationship where not only was that kind of communication safe, but it was expected. Here it is, probably 10 years later, and I still remember that story because I screwed up. I was not the leader I wanted to be. I was not treating him with dignity and respect, what I wanted to convey to him. And he called me out. And it was safe. It was not only appropriate, but it was appreciated. And it's those types of moments that we get to have as leaders where we realize how much more we need to grow. And it led to me creating a rules of engagement framework that I've used since then with my leadership teams to ensure that everybody's on the same page. And here's what this is. This is a framework where we get to convey to others what's in our head about how we want to show up, how we need them to show up, what's important to us, and how we can be most effective working together. I've gone so far as to give this to candidates when they were interviewing for roles to say, hey, this is how I show up as a leader. This is what I expect. This is what you can expect from me. And I want you to know this before you even consider joining this organization. I've always told people when they're interviewing for a role, hey, you should be interviewing us, this company, me as a leader, this organization, just as fiercely as we are interviewing you, because you need to make sure that this is a place where you will feel and be able to contribute at the highest possible level. And if for any reason along this journey, you don't feel like you're able to connect with our purpose, our vision, our mission, our values, then you should opt out. You should withdraw, because this isn't about getting a job. This is about ensuring that you are aligned and can do your best work to create the most value as part of a team, as part of an organization. And so having rules of engagement that allow you as a leader to convey what's inside your head, create clarity and remove ambiguity, it allows for the organization to move further, to move faster, and it allows for your leaders on your teams, the people that you serve, to get out of a place of guessing what's on your mind, guessing what's important, guessing how to make sure that they're doing what it is that you want them to do. And it invites conversation. It invites clarity. And ambiguity is the enemy of great results. Let me walk you through the rules of engagement framework that we've created. And it's so much more than just a document. It's a playbook. And like I said, I would recommend that if you do this exercise, that you share it with people that you work with. It can go to employees, of course. It can go to your direct reports. It can go to your boss. It can go to your customers, your vendors, your partners. It doesn't really matter who the audience is, because that's not the point. The point is you're creating clarity. You need to deeply understand yourself. You need to deeply understand what's important to you. But when you do that, and you've led yourself down that path, you can convey. Now, this isn't about being a dictator and telling someone, hey, this is what I expect from you. This is about inviting conversation to ensure that ambiguity is removed. And like George did, it creates an opportunity for someone to call you out. Well, here are the 7 components of what I believe are a great rules of engagement guide. This is the Decoder ring for working with a person most effectively. So step number 1, what you value as a leader. These aren't just words. These are behavioral definitions. Let me give you an example from my own. Service first leadership. And the question that I put behind that is, who will you serve today? Leadership is service. This means I prioritize removing blockers for you. I measure my success by your growth, by your development, by your results, and I lead by asking, how can I serve you? Before what you can do for me. You don't work for me. We work together for a shared mission. That is a direct word for word from my rules of engagement guide about what I value as a leader. I have 5 of these points. Section number 2, what I as a leader expect from myself. And this is so important because this is the one that allows someone else to call you out. These are your commitments to your team. These are the things that you are saying, I commit to you. This is how I will show up. And if I don't, I want you to call me out. These are my commitments to you. If I'm not honoring these, you have permission and the responsibility to call me out. Let me give you an example from mine. I will provide crystal clear commander's intent on every initiative, where we're going, why it matters, what success looks like, who we need on the journey, and when we'll get there. You own the how. I'll pressure test it with you, not for you. And if you don't have a clear commander's intent, ask me for it. That's your responsibility as well. So what I'm doing there is I'm conveying to folks, hey, I'm going to give you this. And if I don't, ask for it. Call me out. Let's make sure that we remove ambiguity. Section number 3, what I expect from my team. This is the clear, non-aspirational expectations. This is where we get to say, here's what I expect from leaders on my team, from people on my team, from others as being part of this organization. The goal here is to eliminate the guessing game. How many times have folks in your organization, maybe even yourself, thought, I wish I knew what my boss really expected? This is your opportunity as a leader to convey that. These are non-negotiable behaviors, things that you're expecting from others. Here's one of mine. It's one of my pet peeves, and it's one of the things I put top of my list. Don't make me follow up. If you commit to something, close the loop, proactively communicate status on key initiatives. Not letting me know does not equal completion. Don't make me follow up. I have great systems of follow up. I have great structure to make sure that I do, but I don't want to. It's not my job to follow up with you to make sure that you did yours. And so I just say that very directly and candidly, and it creates clarity, which is what we're going for. Section number 4, how I give and receive feedback. These are the ground rules that remove ambiguity. If you want to invite someone to give you immediate crystallized feedback in public, then say that. If you want someone to give you feedback in private because you like to process things quietly and ask more questions, that's great. Put it in writing. Tell people so they know exactly how most effectively to communicate with you. Here's a personal example for me. When I ask questions, they are seeking understanding. They are not implying direction. I ask tons of questions. They are my attempt to seek clarity and build alignment, not an attempt to steer you down a prescribed path. And if you feel steered in any way, if you feel that my questions are trying to push you down a certain path, push back. That's not my intent. I want to ask questions to understand, to create clarity and build alignment. It gives an opportunity, an open invitation for someone to create feedback and clarity and pushback. Section number 5, how I make decisions. This is really important. Like, this tells people what they need to know before they walk in the room about how you're going to process information, how you are going to react to whatever it is that they're bringing to you to create a decision on. This is your opportunity to tell people your decision-making style. Here's one from my guide. Come with solutions, not with problems. I want you to frame it. Here's the problem. Here are 2 to 3 options I'm considering. Here's my recommendation and why. I'll pressure test these with you. I'll use Socratic questioning. I'll play the devil's advocate, scenario planning, etc. But I'm not going to tell you what to do. I don't want you to bring your problem to me. So how I make decisions is if you bring me a problem, you must bring a solution along with it. It creates clarity. And this is my style. May be very different from someone else. It may be very different from you. Dustin Reitman, who has been through our Leadership Accelerator program, he shared that when we were going through this exercise as a cohort, that he had this aha. He says, I make simple decisions very quickly, but I need lots of data and research for longer term decisions. Good. If somebody knows that walking in, they can frame it and say, this is a longer term decision. I need to show up with Dustin with information and data. That's how he's going to make a decision. Without this clarity, people don't know how to present information to you, and they're guessing. It's our job as leaders to remove the guesswork from our team so they can be more impactful and effective. All of these things I'm talking about are about them, not about us. We're communicating to them about how we show up so that they can be more effective. Section number 6, how you want to be approached. This is your communication protocols and your urgency levels. Like, for example, text me if you need me immediately, email me if you need a more thoughtful response. There's ways to create very clear and specific communication protocols that allow the other person to communicate with you most effectively and allow you to communicate with them most effectively. Here's one of mine. Lead with the bottom line up front, the bluff. Give me the answer first, then show me all the supporting work. If you give me a 10 paragraph or a 10-page document and you make me read the whole thing to try and figure out what your point is, I'm going to be really frustrated. If you put the bluff up front, then I can go down into the specific information that I need. That's one of mine. Does it work for everybody? Of course not. But it's how I ensure that other folks know how to show up and communicate most effectively. And it reduces frustration. It reduces that why the failure moment. In section 7, this is the last section. What are your non-negotiables? The way I think about this is these are the behaviors that erode trust. These are the things that are intolerable. And you just need to call it out and say, hey, look, if you do this, it's going to erode trust with me. And I want to make sure that we're on the same page as quickly as possible, as directly as possible. And so we make sure that we share our non-negotiables. These are the things that don't work around here. And if you see these behaviors in yourself, in others, or in me, address them immediately. Again, another invitation for a direct and open and candid feedback conversation. Here's one of mine, a victim mindset. I expect a why and a what, not a who. We own problems here. We don't blame. And if you're pointing fingers instead of solving issues, we're not aligned. I'm not worried about who's at fault. I'm worried about what the issue is and how we're going to fix it. It's just not acceptable to have a victim mindset. That's in my leadership DNA. That's in my leadership rules of engagement. Codifying yours and communicating that is your chance to remove ambiguity so your team can be more effective. Now, here's what makes this powerful. Here is why this works. Leadership is simple, but not easy. That's the tagline of one of my recent most favorite books, The Wisdom of the Bullfrog by Admiral Bill McRaven. And here's the truth. Communication isn't something we do to someone. It's something we do for someone. So all of these things, all the effort and energy we put into place in creating a guide that allows someone else to be more impactful and effective in their roles is something we do for them. This isn't about us, and it's not about our ego and telling somebody how we show up. It's about how do we make sure they are more effective in their roles, that they are more impactful in their service delivery, that they are optimized for success. Here are 3 reasons the rules of engagement transform leadership. Number 1, it eliminates the story in your head problem. Brene Brown is one of my favorite authors, and that's one of those phrases that I captured from her work maybe 10 years ago. The story I've created in my head is. So when we have these things written out and codified, we get to get that story out of our head about what's important, and we share it. Without the rules of engagement in place, everyone is operating from their own interpretation. Let me give an example from some recent work I was doing with the CEO and his COO. The CEO does his weekly planning on Sunday. And the COO was closing the loop on outstanding issues on Monday. So therefore, the CEO and the COO were out of sync. Very simple thing. It was a misalignment gap, but nobody had articulated it. And so therefore, the CEO is going into his weekly planning. He's going into his review, and he doesn't have the loop closed so he can make good decisions. It's a very simple thing, but having a rules of engagement outline where it says, this is when I do my work. This is how you can most effectively communicate. This is what I expect to be called out on. It makes implicit expectations explicit. It eliminates the story in your head that creates problems and friction and waste. 2, it creates psychological safety through clarity. If you lead yourself well, you earn the right to lead your team well. And so by leading yourself, by capturing these things and codifying your commitments to another person, you are inviting accountability. George was able to call me out because we had established in advance that that was a safe place to do it, that that type of communication was not only desired, it was expected. The safety was pre-established. Number 3, it scales your leadership. Whether you're leading yourself or a team of thousands, having this codified allows you to put a playbook in place that allows others to understand and move more effectively. It removes misalignment. As I mentioned, I share this when I've interviewed candidates in the past in advance, and I've had people opt out of the moving forward because they said, hey, I'm not comfortable with the type of candor and directness that you're talking about. Great. It saved us both frustration. It saved us both wasted time, effort, and energy. Creating this type of clarity is the ultimate gift, giving people the information they need to make great choices to enable their success. We're not enabling execution. We're enabling effective decision making. And we're doing it by removing ambiguity. So let me give you some practical tips about how you can actually implement this work, how you can build your rules of engagement and share with your team. Number one, start with 70% complete. Don't do the entire guide and try to make it perfect. Get it to 70% and then share it. Invite conversation over coffee or over lunch. Don't just think you can send somebody a document and that they're going to read it and interpret it with the voice that you have in mind. It's really important to share this information in a manner that allows you to connect meaning to the words, that 93% that comes from vocal or visual acuity. That's how you need to communicate this. Don't engineer perfect, get it 70% right, and then share it, invite feedback, and go, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. This is why I'm doing it. Tell me what you think. Step two, lead with gratitude. Just tell your folks, hey, I'm really grateful for your work. And if you're intimidated to roll this out because you think you're being overly prescriptive, just tell folks, thank you for your great job. I am working on becoming a better leader, and I would really appreciate if you would give me feedback so that I can serve you more effectively. Lead with gratitude. Lead with an invitation to have someone else help you be more impactful, to be more effective. Step three, refine this. Review it on a monthly basis. Review it on a weekly basis. Evaluate how you showed up. Evaluate how you performed and ask for feedback. Hey guys, how am I doing on my rules of engagement? Have you seen me drifting from what I've said is important? Have you seen me falling short of the leader I want to be? When you think about your rules of engagement and how you want to show up with your team, always be asking for the feedback that allows you to understand, am I being the leader that you deserve? Here's the truth. Most leadership frustration comes from unclear expectations. You think you're being clear, but your team is operating based on their own interpretation. That's why I created the Rules of Engagement Guide, a proven framework that eliminates 80% of those "why didn't this get done the right way" moments. It includes 7 critical components that transform ambiguity into clarity, plus a complimentary executive disc assessment worth $295. Download it for free at myrulesofengagement.com. Get the clarity your team desperately needs, and you'll wonder how you led without it. I recently led a group through a workshop where we walked through this entire guide, and I thought it'd be helpful if we actually answered some of their questions, sort of an ask me anything related to this topic. And one of the questions that came up was, how do I ensure the rules of engagement doesn't conflict with existing contracts or legal agreements? And my thought is, I love this question because it reveals the intentional ambiguity problem. And here's what I would do. I would first off say, if you have contracts or legal documents that conflict, call them out. Say, hey, I recognize that this contract, I recognize that this agreement isn't aligned with my rules of engagement, and that's okay. This is tension that we're going to navigate. This is intentional understanding. It's not a misalignment. It's not an intentional gap. We're just going to call this out and say, hey, we have clarity around here. This is our rules of engagement. This particular agreement doesn't align, and we're going to make sure that we understand that very openly. Now, don't let the conversation be unstated. These unstated conflicts is what make people go, they say this, but they don't act like that. That's a problem, and that undermines your leadership credibility or authority. This is a personal rules of engagement for your leadership expectations. If you have corporate contracts that violate your own personal leadership commitments, then perhaps you need to ask yourself, is this the type of business I need to be in? Is this the type of engagement I need to have? The most important part here is to invite the dialogue. Tell your team, if you see things that violate this in any way, raise the flag. I might not know it. Trust is built through addressing conflicts head on and not avoiding them. The second question that I got, and I've heard this quite a few times over the years, is should this be idealistic or practical? Should it be who I am actually today, or should it be who I'm working to become? And, I'm not sure if I live this out exactly the way I've written it. And I think that's a phenomenal question. And it's what invites a conversation. It's what invites the opportunity for someone to lean in and push back. I would say for everything except your non-negotiable section, write what you expect to do 80% of the time. Don't make it so aspirational that you can only hit it 30% of the time. People can sniff that out immediately. They'll see you as a do what I say, not what I do type of leader. But here's what makes this powerful. You're inviting conversation. When you violate your own 80% rule, and you will, you have the opportunity to own it. In your Monday morning meeting, say, hey, last week I realized I violated my principle here. I owe you guys an apology and a commitment that I'll do better. For those non-negotiable, those are non-negotiable. Those are the things that you hire and fire for. Those are the things that you hold yourself accountable. If that's on the list, defend it, live it, make sure that you show up. Just know this, whatever you publish today, it's a first draft. It's going to evolve. Don't engineer perfect. Just get something down to create a bidirectional communication to make others more impactful and effective. Last question I got that I thought was really interesting and eye-opening was, how do you implement this with an existing team where we've never done this before? And I think this is where a lot of leaders get stuck, is we don't launch something, we don't start something because we have a lot of old dogs and we're worried about whether or not they can learn new tricks. What I would say here is anchor in the future, not the past. Don't say, here's what we're going to do because we're doing all these things wrong. Just say, here's the type of organization we're working to become. Here's the type of leader I am working to become. And here's what I'm changing in order to get there. And that's what gives someone an opportunity to join your invitation to be part of the future. People don't like change. That's just human nature. None of us do. But at some point, we've got to change. And so what we're doing is creating a very clear picture of the future we're trying to create and opening the invitation to them to be part of it. They get to make the choice. It's going to be up to them. But when you have a clear definition of the future and then you ask, are we giving you the feedback you need? Are we giving you the information so you can make great choices to become part of this future? That's what creates buy-in. Not everybody will choose, and that's okay. But we're giving them the information they need to make a choice. So as I wrap this up, the rules of engagement is about creating leadership rocket fuel. It's about creating clarity, and clarity is rocket fuel for your leadership. Clarity plus alignment equals execution. The rules of engagement is a tool that you can use to create both. You have to have clarity for yourself, and then you have to create alignment with your team. Remember, communication isn't something we do to someone. It's something we do for someone. Here's your specific challenge in the next 72 hours. First, download the complimentary rules of engagement template. There's a link in the show notes, and it includes a free executive disc assessment that's worth $295 so that you can have deeper insight about your own behaviors and how you show up. Second, block half an hour out this week. Get it to 70% complete. Use a timer as a forcing function to go through each section. Set a timer for 3 minutes. You can get through all 7 sections in 21 minutes. Third, and this is the most important part, share it with just one person, just one. Invite the conversation. Tell them, I'm trying to get better at creating clarity. Does this work for you? Would this help you? That's it. That's leadership. Remember this, leadership is simple, but not easy. And it starts with leading yourself first. Hey, before you go, if this episode helped you see leadership differently, I have 3 personal requests. First, and this is the most important one, share this with one leader who needs it. Think of someone in your network who's frustrated with their team's execution or is trying to scale their own impact. Copy this episode link right now and text them, hey, I just listened to this episode and I think you'll get real value from it. That simple act of sharing, that is servant leadership in action. Second, subscribe to Leadership Unlocked. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite podcast player, just hit subscribe or the follow button. That way you won't miss the next episode and it helps us reach more leaders like you. And third, if you're willing, this would be a huge help for us. Leave a 5-star rating and write a quick review. I know it takes 60 seconds of your time, but here's what it does. It helps other leaders discover the show. Every rating, every review, it's how we expand our impact together. So those 3 things: share with a friend, subscribe, leave a review. I'm deeply appreciative, and that would give us so much help. Thanks for being part of the Leadership Unlocked community. Now go create some clarity for others.